Mrs. Pumphrey adored her Pekingese Tricky. He was her pride and joy, her constant companion. She showered him with affection, but even more so with extravagant treats and rich foods. Tricky's days were filled with lavish meals, cream cakes, and chocolates. He had little room for exercise, preferring to lounge on cushions and be fussed over by his devoted owner. Mrs. Pumphrey, blinded by love, saw this indulgence as a sign of her affection for Tricky. She believed she was giving him the best life possible, unaware of the harm she was inflicting upon her beloved pet. Tricky, though pampered and loved, was far from healthy. His once lively gait had become a slow waddle, his coat dull and lifeless. The excess weight and lack of exercise were taking a toll on Tricky's health. He became lethargic, his breathing labored. Little did Mrs. Pumphrey know, her excessive love was pushing Tricky towards a dangerous path. I received a frantic call from Mrs. Pumphrey one afternoon. "Mr. Herriot, please come quickly. Tricky is dreadfully ill," she cried into the phone, her voice thick with worry. I grabbed my medical bag and rushed over to her grand house, expecting to find the poor dog in a terrible state. I was in for quite a shock. Upon arriving, I was led to where Tricky lay, sprawled across a luxurious dog bed. He was groaning softly, eyes half closed. But what truly astonished me was his size. Tricky was enormously fat, his body a mass of rolls and folds. He resembled a bloated sausage rather than a dog. I couldn't help but stare in disbelief. How could a dog so small consume so much? It was clear that Tricky's ailment stemmed from his extravagant lifestyle. He was a victim of love, drowning in a sea of culinary indulgence. "Mrs. Pumphrey," I said, trying to mask my astonishment. "Tricky needs immediate medical attention. He's seriously overweight." Her eyes welled up, convinced her beloved pet was on the brink of death. I gently persuaded her to let me take Tricky to the hospital, assuring her it was for his own good. At the surgery, Tricky was an odd patient. Used to constant attention and treats, he lay listlessly on his bed, refusing to eat the simple, healthy food I offered. The other dogs, lean and energetic, eyed him curiously. However, this period of abstinence was exactly what Tricky needed. Over the next few days, a miraculous transformation occurred. The combination of regular exercise, a balanced diet, and most importantly, competition for food with the other dogs, worked wonders. Tricky, driven by his primal instincts, began to shed the pounds. He started to run and play with an energy he hadn't displayed in years. Throughout Tricky's stay, Mrs. Pumphrey showered him with gifts, bottles of fortified wine, cases of eggs, and jars of expensive meat. Of course, these were strictly against my orders for Tricky, but my partners and I greatly enjoyed the unexpected bounty. Each day, Mrs. Pumphrey would call, desperate for news of her beloved Tricky. I reassured her that he was making steady progress, much to her relief. Finally, the day came when Tricky was ready to go home. Gone was the sluggish, overweight dog. He was now a lean, energetic canine full of life. Mrs. Pumphrey was overjoyed. Tears streamed down her face as she embraced her revitalized pet. "Oh, Mr. Herriot, you've worked a miracle," she exclaimed, her voice choked with emotion. Tricky's transformation was a stark reminder that love, though pure and well-intentioned, can sometimes be misguided. While showering our pets with treats and affection brings us joy, it is crucial to remember that their well-being extends beyond culinary indulgence. A balanced diet, regular exercise, and most importantly, resisting the urge to overindulge our furry companions are the true hallmarks of responsible pet care.